Howdy, folks. My name is Alex, otherwise known as Through the Z, and welcome to episode 39 of the Church Digest. As always, we'll start off with our disclaimer. I'm not a financial or tax advisor. This is not financial or tax advice. This is for entertainment purposes only, but please enjoy. Today's going to be a travel episode. So I've talked a couple times that I've just recently took a trip to Europe. I went to London, Prague, and Amsterdam. And in this episode, I'm just going to go over the airlines I went on, the airports I went to, the lounges I visited, the cities I went to, my experiences on what cards I used while I was there, which ones worked well, which ones didn't, some other small nuances of some stuff that I did while I was there, as well as the total cost for the trip. So strap in, we have some stuff to go over. I don't know if I'll be able to get a standard episode out this week. I know I don't want travel episodes to replace standard episodes, but I don't think the standard episode has just quite enough information to go over. The large thing I want to talk about there is the Evolve Synapse debacle that's going on, but it's still under development, so I don't really have like a solid update. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the heck's going on, so I think this is a good little episode to chew on while that mulls over. My next episode will probably be up sometime mid to late next week, so apologies for that. But without further ado, we'll dive into the travel episode here. Actually, I always say that, but then I have some housekeeping stuff. As always, by obligation, shout out to Kung Fuer and Cleed for the Cleed tier. We have a Patreon over at patreon.com/ChurchDigest, where you can support me with just as little as $1 a month. Anything helps. These podcast is supported just by listeners through Patreon. I do have a listener who supports me on Spotify as well, so shout out to you as well. But we did get 2 members of the Patreon to join. Welcome to April and Rocher13. Thank you very much. Also, thanks to Chris from All the Hacks. I had some communication with him over email, churnersdigest@gmail.com. If you ever want to send something over, have something to say about the podcast, or just want to chat, you can shoot me a message. He sent over some new card images that I didn't have in my card collection, and also gave me a suggestion on updating the instructions to make it a little bit easier for those that don't have terminal access. You now don't really need terminal to use it. I think I might have said this in the last episode. I can't remember, but thanks, Chris. I don't think I've replied to your email just yet. I've been kind of busy, but I'm going to reply back at some point. And shout out to Kevin for the Monzo referral. All right, so on to travel now. So to start the trip, I flew out of Logan in Boston, Massachusetts. I just recently got the American Express Platinum card, which a lot of you know if you listen to these episodes. And with that comes Clear. And I wanted to use Clear for the first time. I went through and I signed up and I got the statement credit for it, the $180 or whatever it is. And I've always kind of had a dislikement for Clear. There's like an elitism that comes along with it. Because even though I have TSA PreCheck, Clear always cuts me. It somehow, Clear always comes over with some guy in a business suit and some Clear representative goes, "Hi, one for Clear, Justin Schmo." Just goes right over to the agent. Agent just looked at the little card, yeah, you're good. And it's clearly designed to make you feel like you're beneath them. Even though I have global entry or PreCheck, I'm not able to cut the line and just be chaperoned over in front of TSA and get to cut the whole line. So I was like, hey, now I'll be able to be this elite, above everybody snobby guy that gets to cut the whole line. But turns out when I went to Logan, Clear's only in Terminal A and B, I think. And my flight was out of Terminal C, and Terminal C just doesn't have Clear. So I wasn't able to use it, wasn't able to sign up. TSA PreCheck was still incredibly fast. There was probably 20 people in line, and I went right through. So I didn't really cause a fuss, but it was a bit annoying that I wasn't able to use my Clear credit like I wanted to. While I was at Logan, I used my priority pass to get into a couple lounges as well as a restaurant. I do have a tracker down in the show notes that I track all of my priority pass visits with which card I used, what terminal I went to, what the lounge or restaurant was, what date it happened, how many guests I had, the value that I got directly from the card, my out-of-pocket expense, and then my total value, which is just the value that I got minus the out-of-pocket expense. So while I was in Logan, I went to Stephanie's, which is, I have the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite card, which still comes with restaurant access and priority pass, which is super valuable for me because the lounges in Logan are kind of terrible. I mean, they do have the Chase Sapphire Lounge, which I'll discuss here in a little bit. But Stephanie's is just great because I get $20 off, $28 off per meal, which is pretty nice. I mean, that can get me like a sandwich covered and then maybe a drink. But I also get a guest with that, so I get two $28 credits. So that's $56 I get off of my total, which is very nice. I did go, and it wound up still costing me a decent chunk of change. Actually, no, I only paid $10 out of pocket. I think my friend and I both paid $10, so it was $20 total. So I should really put this as $20 cost out of pocket. But Stephanie's it's decent food. I think it's better than a lounge food. It's like fresh made food. It's not like coming off a conveyor belt or coming out of like the little hot plates that they have at lounges. We did chat up the waiter a bit, and he was saying that there's not a lot of business anymore at the Stephanie's. He said he's been working there for like 7 to 10 years, and he used to do like 100 people a day, and now he does like 30 people a day, which is a huge change, like even from a year or two ago, he said. And he attributed it mainly to the Chase Sapphire Lounge. And he even went on to say, I mean, I don't know if I can really trust the guy, but I don't know what kind of pulse he has on the space. But he said starting in like June or July, Stephanie's will no longer be a part of the restaurants. And I think they're trying to do that for, at least from what he was explaining, they're looking to do that for all of the restaurants in Logan, specifically to gear business towards the new Chase Lounge. So now that we've talked about the Chase Lounge and their alternatives, which was Stephanie's, let's talk about this Chase Lounge. So Chase Lounge, which is in Terminal B, it's like in between B and C in that new corridor they made. You have to take an elevator to go upstairs, which is funny because one of my friends that I was traveling with doesn't like elevators, but he had to because he couldn't find a staircase to go up. But we went up the elevator, scanned my priority pass, I chatted with the host for a bit, and he was saying, I was like, oh, do you like get a lot of priority pass people coming in here? And he was like, it's mostly priority pass. And I was like, oh, you don't get like Chase Sapphire cards? And he like was taken aback, like as if the Chase Sapphire card like wasn't even a thing. And he's like, oh yeah, we get like a couple of those. But it seems like a majority is just priority pass people using their one-time visit. When I went there was no wait. We just went right in. I think it was like maybe 3 p.m. on like a Tuesday, so that kind of makes sense. The bathrooms are very nice. The bathroom's like very dark, and it was very heavily perfumed. I mean, it smelled nice. It was just very heavily perfumed. I'd say the other nicest lounge that I've been to has been the Venture X in Dulles, in DC, and this is definitely nicer. This lounge is larger. The food is better. There's ready-made food as well as like you can order food to your table. If you do go there, I highly recommend there's like a Greek salad that you can order on the ready to make menu, which is like on the QR code. It was really good. The chicken I can't remember if it was chicken or pork that they had on there, but it was delicious. And as someone who's Greek and likes Mediterranean food, it was actually really good. I would have ordered like 3 of those. It's definitely bougier than the Venture X Lounge. The drinks that they had were nice. All the options were good. The only thing that Venture X had that was better than this Chase Sapphire Lounge was like the Venture X Lounge has ready-made like to-go things in a little to-go cup and like yogurts or sandwiches like already specifically designed for takeaway or to-go. And I don't think they had that at the Sapphire Lounge, which was a little disappointing, but not bad. They did have plastic wrapped apples, which I thought was funny, and my buddy brought it with us all the way through Europe for the 2-week trip and wound up never eating it, but then brought it all the way back to the States. So this apple has seen quite a lot. But I think that's it for at least lounges to start for Logan. All right, so next I'm going to talk about the airports that I went to. The airport we arrived in was London Heathrow. So we flew direct from Logan to London Heathrow. I did not leave from there, so I don't really have much experience in the airport. It seemed nice. It was quite big. Didn't really have much to say about it, but we made the horrible decision of leaving from Luton Airport, which, I mean, this is our first time traveling to London, so I didn't really look too much into it, but Luton, even though it pops up as London when you search like London for airports, it's not London. Do not go to Luton. It was terrible. Not only was it rainy, but I think that they recently had. I was talking to someone who sat next to me on the airplane, and he was saying that there was recently like a car that exploded or lit on fire in the parking lot, and this guy was also like big against electric vehicles. Like I just like made an offhand comment of like, oh, I've seen a lot of electric vehicles, and he like went on a tangent about how they're horrible and he hates them and no one likes them, and he specifically referenced this car that blew up, and he was like, they say it's gas, but we all know it's electric, which was like hilarious. He was like pushing his electric propaganda, anti-electric propaganda onto me. But the consequence of this car exploding, I guess, was a lot of the parking lots were closed. So when we arrived, we took an Uber from London, which was like £100, which is annoying because pound is 25% stronger than the dollar. So it was like $130. We arrived at like just a random parking lot. It's pouring rain. We have to go to a shuttle, and then the shuttle brings us over closer to the airport, which we then still have to walk uncovered in the rain over to the airport. And the security was horrible. I don't know what it is about European security, but they always want you to take your toiletries out of your bag and put it into like its own plastic bag and then put it separate from all of your items, which is a huge pain. And they say you can only have one bag, but I have enough toiletries for like 3 bags. So I had to sit there and like unload my whole thing, put it all in these plastic bags. The security probably took like 20 minutes to a half hour. It was quite crowded. It took a while. The staff there was not very nice or pretty short. One thing I will say is there were a lot of restaurants access for Priority Pass in Luton. There were 3 of them in the terminal I was in. We specifically went to Avalon Crafted Coffee, and there you get, I think it was like £15 each, or like £22 a person, something like that. And I was kind of hard pressed to find enough items to meet the limit, so I just like picked a couple random ones, and I was like, oh, I have 2 guests, and the cashier was like, you still have like £20. Do you want to add some more stuff? I'm like, I guess. So I grabbed a couple more, and he's like, you're still short. Do you want to grab more stuff? I'm like, dude, I just want to grab some free food. I don't care if I maximize it. It's fine. But the food was actually good. They had like some chocolates. They had croissants, which were decent. They had some coffees, some easy to-go items that you can just grab from a little refrigerator. Then we went to the number 1 lounge, NO1 Lounge at Luton. There was a wait. It was a pretty small lounge, like maybe 15, 20 seats. The food was actually decent. They had a full English breakfast, which was quite good. You can get alcohol there. There wasn't much else in terms of food or drink, honestly, but the airport was kind of terrible. It was super crowded. There was like construction everywhere, but the lounge was a nice little escape. So that was Luton. All right, next we traveled from Luton to Prague, which I think they only have one airport, PRG, and we arrived there. Not much to note. When we went to leave, super different from Luton. The security was incredibly easy. The staff were very nice. I think I still had to remove my plastics into a bag, but like, you know, when you go up to, at least in the States, you go up to TSA and you start taking stuff out of your bag and they're like barking at you. Laptops in its own container. Remove all your large electronics. These people at Prague were actually quite nice. They were just did not really much to know. They were just kind and made it clear what I needed. The signage was pretty good. They didn't really care too much. It seemed like the security was kind of lax, so maybe that's why it seemed a little bit easier. The airport was pretty clean. It wasn't crowded. It was quick. For Priority Pass, the restaurants. So at Luton, there were a couple like takeaway stuff. Specifically, this Avalon was perfect. There was just some stuff I can go and take some stuff out. But for Prague, there were only full restaurants, so like you had to sit down and actually have a meal, sort of like Stephanie's, which we weren't really looking to do. And there were 3 of us, and I only get 1 guest, so one of us wasn't going to be able to get enough food. There was a lounge. It was kind of hard to find. You had to go to like the second floor, which you can only get to via an elevator again. No, we actually did take a staircase, but it was like way in the back. It was kind of hard to find. The instructions in the Priority Pass app were actually wrong. But the food there was not great. It was just a continental breakfast. They had like pureed eggs and like pureed like olive paste. It was some bizarre food. They also had like loaves, like a big loaf of fresh made bread, but it wasn't really fresh. It was pretty stale. And they didn't cut it. They just like left a knife there. So you have to sit there and like everyone's just grabbing the bread and cutting it. It wasn't great. They did have a full fridge of alcohol. You just go and self-serve, which was nice, but it was like 9 a.m, so we really weren't in the mood to drink. You could make like mimosa or something. There were orange juice. There was like a cappuccino machine, all self-serve. So the options were there, but like they weren't great. Not a great lounge access experience. And then finally, Amsterdam. We arrived in Terminal 3, Gate M, which seemed super busy when we arrived. So we were like, oh, damn, we got to get here like early to make sure we don't have an issue getting through security. So we arrived 2.5 hours early just in case. We were flying Play Airlines, which is like a new budget airlines going through Iceland. When I had my Uber, we told them that we went to Play. They didn't know what Play was. When we arrived at security, we told them we went Play. They didn't know what Play was. They were just like, are you Terminal 3? Yes. Okay, come here. Gate M. So nobody really knew what Play was. So we get to Terminal 3, Gates M. Specifically Gates M. There's only one area in security you can go to for Terminal 3, Gates M. It's its own little siloed terminal, which worked out in our favor in a way. Not for Priority Pass, because the only Priority Pass lounges were in Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. There was no options in Terminal 3, Gates M. And the security there was just for like maybe 5 or 6 gates, so it was an absolute breeze. An absolute breeze for ours. There were huge lines for all the rest of the terminals, but ours had nothing just because there was maybe 4 or 5 gates that this one serviced. So we went through. We didn't have to remove our laptops, didn't have to remove our liquids. We didn't have to do the plastic bags like we did in Prague and Luton. Definitely the easiest travel experience I had in Amsterdam. They were just like, if Prague was good, Amsterdam was the gold standard. It was incredible. They had more modern technology, like you did the stand and put your arms to the side kind of scanning thing that scans your body. Don't know what it does. I had no problem. Also, if you remember from last time, I always would get randomly selected for like a pat down or a swab or check my bag extra. Didn't happen on any of my trips, which is fantastic. But when we were stuck in this Terminal 3, Gates M at Amsterdam, it was a bit annoying because there was no Priority Pass access, so we were kind of just stuck with whatever food was there. The food wasn't great. It was pretty expensive. There was a good coffee shop. If you do go to specifically this terminal, there's a coffee shop that's in the center, and this one that's off to the side. I recommend the one that's in the center because they actually make the cappuccino themselves. They don't like just push a button on a machine, then it spits it out. So next, the flights that I took specifically, Boston to London Heathrow was JetBlue, and man, I think that was the best international flight I've ever taken. The flight was pretty empty. I had a middle seat, but it was in between my two buddies I was flying with. We asked someone to switch with us because the flight was pretty much empty. We switched to middle for a middle. I think it was an Airbus 320, one of the like narrow bodies. A narrow body doesn't sound great, but I was pretty comfortable. They had actual screens on the back of the chair, which I haven't had in a while for a flight because I always choose budget. On there, you get to choose your meal. You get to choose your drink. The meal was incredible. So I think they're just in Massachusetts or maybe just in Boston. There's a company called Dig, D-I-G. Their website's Digin, D-I-G-I-N-N, I think they go by. They have really good food. Like their restaurants in like their brick and mortars in Massachusetts are delicious. They do like sort of like Thanksgiving style homey food, like roasted vegetables, roasted chicken thighs, couscous, and I can't remember the term, but like grains as a side. It's really good food, and JetBlue had it as their in-flight meal, and it was fantastic. They had, I think I chose the meatball option. I think I didn't know when I ordered it that it was Dig, and then I came out and it was all Dig branded. I was like, "Oh, this is Dig." I would have like picked the chicken because I know the chicken's good, but I got like a beet salad. It was delicious. I got like a kale salad, which was really good. Super great experience. The staff was very nice. We had alcohol included with our meal for the direct flight. It was great. Highly recommend JetBlue across at least international. Very nice. Next, we did London Heathrow to Prague. Sorry, not London Heathrow. Luton. Luton to Prague. That was on EasyJet. I didn't really have a problem with EasyJet. I think they gave us a snack on the plane, if I'm not mistaken. I had a window seat, which was nice. The flight wasn't too empty, or the flight wasn't too full. Oh, we were actually... EasyJet's weird because they make you check in a week ahead of time, like to get your boarding pass, which, oh no, excuse me, it was 30 days. 30 days ahead of time you check in. So we all checked in immediately, and we got like seat row 3. I'd never been that front up on a plane, and it's not like first class. They're all just economy. But it was very super easy. Had absolutely no problem. We also, on EasyJet, paid for a carry-on, which doesn't come normally. So we got quick boarding, which was a cheat code. There are regulations like the size you can bring a carry-on, but since we had easy boarding, which is just like when you get a carry-on, you get easy boarding. It made it super easy, and they didn't check the size of the luggage. It was great. I really enjoyed my EasyJet flights, and they were super cheap. I think they were like $40 one way. We then went from Prague to Amsterdam, also EasyJet, also a window seat, also easy boarding, whatever the heck they call it. They didn't check anything, didn't really care, as long as you had like this little, they give you a little checked bag thing that says like approved. As long as you have that, they don't even check the size. My neighboring seat was empty, so it was a pretty easy flight from Prague to Amsterdam. I think it was like 2 hours. Yeah, EasyJet was nice. No complaints from me. Would definitely fly again. And then we flew Amsterdam to Iceland, then Iceland to Boston on Play. Play is Play. It definitely the worst of all the flights we took. There's absolutely no in-flight food or drink, all paid. I did wind up getting a in-flight meal deal. It was like €12 for a ham and cheese sandwich, which was honestly like terrible, but whatever. A snack, which I got the protein pancake, which was not good. I didn't realize it was filled with like fake caramel, which was not yummy. And a drink, which I got water, which was, it's like half a liter. It was so small. But like if you're thirsty on this 6-hour flight, your only option is to get a half liter water for, I think it was like €3. So definitely plan ahead on those flights. I think I was too tired, or I think I was actually writing this script in the airport, so I did not think ahead to try and get some cheaper on-flight snacks. But on that flight, I had an aisle seat. I think I had an aisle seat. I had a window seat, and the guy next to me wanted to switch the guy across the way wanted to switch with the guy next to me because his wife was there, and the guy in the aisle switched with him, and then we flew from Iceland to Boston, and that guy was then next to me on the flight, and I offered to switch with him, and they were very generous. They were very grateful. They were very nice. I forget his name, but he's from the Netherlands. Met his wife in the Netherlands, but she's from New Hampshire and moved to New Hampshire. And they were so nice. They bought my in-flight meal because I offered to switch with them for the 6-hour flight. So shout out them. I got my in-flight meal for free. Also, our play flight leaving from Amsterdam was delayed by like an hour and a half. And there wasn't any weather by us, so I wasn't too sure why. But we then had a connecting flight to go from Iceland to Boston, and we were all a bit concerned about making it. And the flight crew said multiple times, like, we will be holding all of the flights, because, I mean, no one's really traveling from Amsterdam to Iceland. They're all flying, connecting, going through Iceland, because that's what Play does. They want you to come to Iceland and try and coerce you to stay there by giving you like a free layover stay. But on the flight, they're like, don't worry, we're holding the flights. We have connecting flights to DC, Boston, and New York. All three will be held. So we did kind of do a little, I have a meeting coming up. We did kind of do a little airport shuffle to get there on time. But we had plenty of time. We really didn't have to do that. So let's talk about cities now. I'm going to have to pause this and then come back and record the rest of it. I have a pretty busy day. I have some meetings coming up here. I just want to try and squeeze this in before obligations kick in. So in terms of cities, first went to London. It was expensive. As I said earlier, the pound's 25% stronger than USD, which was super annoying. So everything, like, it'd be £6, but that winds up being like £9 just because the conversion rate. It reminded me of like New York City, like a big city, kind of bustling, not nearly as dirty as New York. The subway was expensive, but it worked well. It was crowded, a bit confusing. There were sections where it said like to take a free shuttle from the airport, and then I got kind of reprimanded by the woman who was like in charge of it. She's like, "Are you getting on this train?" I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "You can't use that ticket." I'm like, "Okay, it told me to use this ticket." And she's like, "No, you have to go upstairs and pay." I'm like, "All right." Also, it was kind of cute. That woman was not only the one like helping people out and reprimanding them if they're doing something wrong, but she's also the one that does the announcements. Like, she's standing around in the crowd making announcements saying like, "This train's coming," or "Please stand back," or "If you're trying to get in this connection, this next train is going to blah blah blah," which is super nice. London food kind of trash. The beer was really the only option that you had to drink. When I would go to pubs, they did have some ciders, which were super sweet. I'm not a big beer guy, so it was kind of tough for me. But they did have these cool taps. I was talking. We talked with one of the bartenders, and he was saying like there's a standard tap they have in the States where you just like tilt it down and the beer automatically comes out because it's carbonated, I think, in there. But there's another style of tap that they have there that you kind of pump it, like you're pumping water out of a well, and it's not carbonated, I think, something like that. It was cool. I thought it tasted actually better out of the pump, but the guy was like, "It's just a pain in the butt. No one ever, like, it doesn't really do much." The Airbnb we had there was pretty trash, honestly. We wanted to, like, all the Airbnbs they were pretty expensive, so we were just looking for like a cheap one. Ours wasn't great. The dishwasher was moldy. The washing machine was not super good. We wanted a balcony. It didn't have a balcony. It had like a balconette. The walls were super thin. We didn't hear neighbors. But we heard the street super easily. There was a bar across the way that was pretty loud. There were stains on the nightstand next to the bed. The water pressure was horrible. The sheets were a bit dirty, but I think it's the worst review I've given on Airbnb. I think I gave her like 4 stars, and then all the subsequent ratings underneath I gave like 3s. We did have a really good tour though. Tour guide's name was Theo. I'll give a link to the show notes if you wind up going to London. I definitely recommend it. He was super chill, just a nice guy, a nice bloke. He was like 30, 40-year-old dude. He told us like he was starting to warm up to us like halfway through, and he was like, "Oh, I was really having a rough morning this morning. I didn't eat anything, and I had too much coffee, and I thought I was going to pass out, but I knew I had to rally for the tour." So he was super nice. He was taking pictures of everybody, just a nice, courteous tour guide. Next was Prague, in stark contrast to London. Also, London was just rainy and cold, so classic London. Prague was beautiful, 80 degrees, sunny. Everything was super cheap. The Czech kroner's super weak. I think it was like our mental math was swoop over the decimal place 2 times and then multiply it by 4 for a conversion, like a roundabout conversion. So if it was 100 kroner, it'd be $4. But like a beer would be 50 kroner for a pint, which was like 2 to 3 USD, which is fantastic. And we would be able to like go onto it. They had this cool river that ran through the city, and on there were a bunch of boats that you could just go on and buy beer. We would just go chill and sit on a beer. Oh, also back in London, Uber boat. If you ever need to get around pretty quick, Uber boats super cheap, comes pretty frequently. You can buy beer on there and chill and have a drink. It's a nice time. All right, back to Prague. You can sit on a boat and enjoy your day while soaking up the sun and soaking up some alcohol. The city is super touristy. Everywhere is like very tourist centered. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just the main city center has become very touristy. There's no locals. The locals that do work there very clearly dislike tourists. And I was talking to, I think, our tour guide, and he was saying that it's mainly because Airbnb is just pushing locals out of the town, so they're just not liking locals because they're not liking tourists because the locals have nowhere to live. Since it is super touristy, it's kind of scam heavy. I didn't feel like I would get pickpocketed. I felt very safe in the city. My only warnings would be at night. There's a lot of people trying to get you to go to like strip clubs, or I don't even know where they're saying. They're just coercing you with women all the time. They're like, oh, do you want to go see women tonight? I'm like, no, we're just going to McDonald's, dude. It's 3 a.m. We just need some food. Some scams to watch out for. The ATMs, they are very overpriced. All the ones that we went to try to charge like a $15% conversion fee. But so I was using my Fidelity cash management account, debit card, which still reimbursed all ATM fees, which is fantastic. But when using the card at these ATMs, don't ever choose cash and balance. If you ever select the balance, they'll charge you to look at your balance. So don't choose balance, hit other, and then go cash. And when it asks you if you want to accept the conversion rate, just say no. If you decline, it'll still give you the cash for, I think, whatever rate your debit card goes through, and then you'll get a refund from Fidelity, which is very nice. There's also some restaurant scams. There was once where I wasn't told they didn't take credit card until after I got the bill. I guess maybe I should have asked that first, but she's like, oh, sorry, we only take cash. And I'm like, all right, how much is it? She's like, 500 kroner. I'm like, all right. I go to the ATM, pull out 500 kroner. She's like, oh, it's 560 kroner. I'm like, you told me it was 500. So I already went to the ATM, already had to deal with the whole decline, not balance cash, and then get the cash, and I didn't want to go back through that, so I just gave her £10. I'm like, this is all I got. I don't know what to tell you. She's like, I guess I'll take that. I'm like, first of all, £10 is worth like 1,000 kroner, so just take it and be quiet. They also just served us bread and then charged us for the bread, even though we didn't ask for the bread. So try and avoid the main, like if you see any place that's like in the middle of the heart of Prague, don't eat there. Big recommendation for Prague. Let me see if I can find the name. There's a really good restaurant that's in the middle of the city, but it's actually not a scam. All right, I found it and I added it as a link in the show notes. It's called Bistro Monk. The staff there was super nice. The food was delicious. It's kind of small options on the menu, but really delicious food, and also pretty clean food. They had a pretty good like avocado bowl with quinoa. They had some pretty delicious eggs Benedict. The food took a little bit to come out, but the staff was super nice. Everything's fresh made. The coffee was good. There's some outdoor seating too. We definitely recommend it if you get a chance. We actually went there, I think, 3 days in a row. It was just that good. And we had a difficult time with staff there. Like I mentioned that they don't really like tourists, and staff just sometimes wouldn't even serve us. I would walk in and say hi, and they wouldn't even give us the light of day. They wouldn't even come over to us or sit us or ask us if we needed anything. They kind of would just ignore us. I know it's a little bit different culture in Europe, but definitely felt a bit out of place in Prague specifically. And then finally in Amsterdam, now that I've been to Europe, I think like 4 times. I've been to Barcelona, Madrid, Granada, London, Prague, Amsterdam, Germany, specifically Munich, Dublin, and yeah, I think that's it. Of all the places I've been to, Amsterdam is the one that I would 1,000% go back to and would recommend to everybody. It's a gorgeous city. They use euros, so it's not really overpriced. I haven't been to Venice. It gives me like Venice vibes it has canals down every street. Beautiful scenery. We happened to be there when it was like President's Day or some kind of national holiday, and the president was there. They had like an outdoor public concert. The laws there are super lenient, if you know what I mean. It's honestly great for families too. Like there is the red light district, but it's pretty clear when you go in there, and you can avoid it if you don't want to see it. Definitely not up my alley, But if you're interested in something like that, it's available to you. There's a lot available to you in Amsterdam. I'll just leave it at that. But the city is really great for walking or biking. It's super interesting there. It seemed like bikes have the right of way everywhere. Like in the States, I think the order goes pedestrians, cars, and then maybe bikes. But in Amsterdam, it seemed like bikes always take precedent. Like they're flying everywhere, and everyone stops for them. And then it goes pedestrians, and then cars are last. It's shocking how many cars there are driving down these little tiny streets, but it's kind of hard to move because the streets aren't really designed for cars. They're more for biking. We stayed at the Volks Hotel, which was super nice. Airbnbs were kind of expensive, so we were like, screw it, let's just stay in a hotel. And it was a really nice experience. They gave like a newspaper, which was super cute, which had like some local news and some stuff that the hotel was experiencing. They also talked about like some legislation it was going through, and I really enjoyed reading it. The hotel also had a rooftop with a beautiful like 280-degree view of just like the city and the surroundings, a nice restaurant up there, as well as a club in the basement. But they wanted to charge like €30 cover, which we weren't going to. Also free hot tubs on the roof, which was awesome. We went up there a couple times. There's only 3 of them, so it's kind of hard to find a spot, but we just kind of chilled out and went off at off-peak hours and were able to find a spot. Our room had a balcony, which we value a lot. Also, we had a balcony in Prague, which was beautiful. Definitely, we value the outdoor space, especially when weather's nice. And it was nice, luckily, in Prague and in Amsterdam. We caught a break with the nice weather. So the outdoor space was super valuable to us. The hotel is definitely more for a younger crowd. We had a loft. It was kind of smaller, more like a modern yuppie kind of vibe of like modern feng shui design and minimalist, but also like nice. Also, they have so many light switches there. We had a hard time, like, we would just sit there flicking like 8 different light switches to see which one's the proper one. We had an absolute beautiful tulip tour. I'll give a link in the show notes. We went on the last day. We were talking to the tour guide, and he was saying that the season was super early this year, just due to climate change, I guess. And we went, I think, on like the 30th, or like a Sunday, and they were saying that the Monday was the last day they were doing the tulip tours. And we had a pretty limited viewing of fields that had tulips, but it was still breathtaking how many they did have. So I'd be shocked to see what it looks like in peak season. But we went around it was like a 5-hour tour. Took a bus ride north. It was beautiful to see the countryside. It's the first time we got out of the city of all the cities we went to, and I valued it a lot, getting out of the city and just seeing countryside and seeing the beauty that the Netherlands has to offer. They also took you to an operating windmill and learned about the history of it, and it was super nice. It was more chill than the rest that we've gone through. As well as we had a canal tour, which wasn't great. It was like maybe $30 a person. We did get unlimited booze. It was on the hour-long canal tour. It was nice to get on a boat. We learned when we got there that you can actually rent a little boat and like putt around yourself. I don't know what's required if you need some kind of license or something. It looked like you really didn't, but I would definitely recommend looking into that if you get a chance. But there's a link in the show notes as well to that canal tour if you're interested. And also the food was really good. There was some TikTok woman that my friends were familiar with at one of the restaurants. I'll see if I can find it and give a link in the show notes. But she was super nice. We like told her we saw her on TikTok, and she was like, "Oh my God, you saw me on TikTok." It's like an older woman, reminded me very much of like my grandmother. So it was very homey. And then when I left, she was kind of busy, and I said, "Bye, thank you very much." And she didn't say anything. And then she like chased me down outside and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't say bye to you." She like gave me a hug, and she was like, "Follow me on TikTok, follow me online." She was very sweet. The food is delicious. Really good ribs. Definitely recommended. So that's it for the cities. Next, I'll go into the cards that I used. So I had my American Express Platinum, and I was trying to use that a bunch in Europe. I definitely felt like a tourist when I was there, trying to use my American Express in Europe. I was surprised at how much it was accepted there. I'd say probably like 50-50 chance it was taken. Most places did take it. That's not 50-50, maybe like 60-40. The majority of places did take American Express. I would just try and swipe it and see what happens. And they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, we don't take that." And then I had my backup for restaurants, which was my Redstone Federal Credit Union. I was using the American Express Platinum because I still had 10x on restaurants from the referral that I received. So that was super nice. It was great to use while I was there. We don't really cook or abroad. We like to relax and just explore some new food. So we definitely shopped out a lot. And as I mentioned, I use my Redstone Federal Credit Union card. It worked flawlessly. I'm really loving that card. 5% on restaurants and gas is fantastic. No, sorry, another meeting. No foreign transaction fees. So it was always accepted. I did not notify them that I was going abroad, and they didn't give me a problem. Curve, honestly, it's just fallen downhill. Like, it works so well abroad, which is such a shame because it gets denied probably more times than not. I think I'm learning that like tap to pay doesn't like, but chip would always go through, and I would just always tap to pay because I'm used to that. And like in Europe, they're very tap to pay centered, which is really nice. They'd give you the little kiosk, and they just like leave it at your desk, and you check out there on your little POS system. But I would just get a decline, and I wouldn't get a notification, an app telling me it was declined. I would get a pending transaction on Curve, but the POS system would just say declined. So I'd have to use another card, which is kind of annoying. I've detailed this in the last Europe trip, but I'll talk about it a little bit here. But Curve's really nice for abroad because it shows you the price in whatever currency you paid, and then it shows you right there the conversion rate. So on most things, it'll show you just the conversion rate in USD, but it's nice in Curve. It shows you the currency you paid in, then your US currency, like next to each other. So it was a shame that didn't work more. I also use my Bank of America Preferred Rewards Elite card. That's this card will always work card. So if I get a decline and I don't want to remember like, oh, what category is this going to be? I'll just put on my PRE. I know it'll work, no problem. Tap it. I didn't use my Venture while we were on my Venture X. Sorry, while we were abroad, I brought my Venture X, and my friends. I like it. It's a great card. I recommend to most people if they travel a lot and don't want to really gamify systems and don't worry about categories and whatnot. Like if you travel once a year, spend $300, Venture X is a great card. So both of my friends that went abroad didn't have it last year, but had it this year, and each had their own Venture X. And while they were using it, one of my friends tried to pay for something, and it got declined and had to wait on hold with Capital One for 10 minutes, which is not great. Not a great look. Only card that we had that issue with was the Venture X. So, and when they called, there was higher than normal call volumes, and they had to sit there for 10 minutes to wait for the transaction to go through, which is pretty annoying. Next, I also use my cardless Boston Celtics card, specifically because it has 7x on rideshare, and I was like, oh, I'm ride sharing a bunch, let me use this. And then I forgot that I have a negative balance in my rewards with them, so I kind of just dumped my charges into a blank void because I'm never getting those points back. I'm just going to leave it in the negative and not really use the card. And I was using I realized once I did that, I should just use my Bank of America Preferred Rewards Elite card because it comes with a lifestyle credit, which gets $150 worth of credit for rideshare, streaming services, and I think gym memberships. But I charged Uber to it. I charged Bolt to it. I did this a while ago for Sportsline as well, which is a streaming service, and none of them triggered the credit. And I've called for the Sportsline, talked to a representative. They submitted a case on my request. It was declined. I called back. They resubmitted it because it does fall under it. Haven't heard anything back. I called back a couple of days ago to get all these Uber charges because I have over $150 worth of Uber charges while I was abroad. None of them triggered the credit. Talked to a representative. Honestly, it took me like 30 minutes to find the proper department, which is really annoying. But I asked them to submit requests on all those transactions on my behalf. So if I have an update on that, I'll update y'all. But hopefully I hear something back because those definitely should qualify. So I'll be fighting tooth and nail for my $150. One weird thing that I experienced while we were abroad was that one restaurant said that they charge a €1 fee for non-Dutch cards while we were in Netherlands. I think it was non-Dutch cards is what they said. And they didn't really validate anything. So I wasn't the one that was paying. My buddy was. And when they asked that, I probably would have just been like, yeah, it is a Dutch card because they wouldn't have known. And I really don't think there's any difference for the point of sale systems there, whether it's a US-based card or a Euro-based card. Maybe the interchange is higher on ours, but definitely not a euro worth. So keep an eye out for that. And as I mentioned before, Fidelity Cash Management Account debit card was fantastic. The fees are all reimbursed for debit cards for international ATMs and domestic. And I called this up before, but Prague has some crazy fees for ATMs. So I think I avoided most of them. As I said earlier, when you use your ATM, when you use an ATM, don't pick cash and balance. Always pick other than cash. And when you're offered a conversion, always hit decline. Some other quirks that I saw while I was abroad. I couldn't use YouTube Music. That's my streaming service of choice because I pay for YouTube Premium, which comes with YouTube Music. But there's some countries that YouTube Music isn't available in, and I think one of them was Prague. So I went to go use my YouTube Music in Prague, and it just locks me out of the app. It just says, you're not allowed to use this in this country. Even with the VPN, it wouldn't let me use it. Even though I have downloaded songs on YouTube Music, it just won't let me access the app at all, which was pretty annoying. Next, I think I called out this in the last episode, but I started using American Express Send, which is like you can pay via Venmo off of your American Express balance, which is nice. Able to pay friends with your credit card balance. There's no rewards and no fees, but you get 30 days to pay it off. So it gives me a little interchange on or not interchange, but a little interest on the balance that I would be owing. You have to set a limit specifically in your American Express app first. So I spent like a $500 limit, and it would just let me send transactions, which is nice. And you can't have a Venmo balance. So if you have a Venmo balance, it'll always use that first. So I would just transfer to my bank account and then use my American Express Send balance. I detailed this in the last episode as well, but I purchased Cloak. I think it was like $30 for the year, just because Wi-Fi in London required phone numbers and email addresses, and I didn't want to give my real one. While we were in Prague, since everything was so cheap, I was like, let's go to a Michelin star restaurant. Why not? Screw it. So we went to La Dégustation Bohème Bourgoise. I don't really know if that's how you pronounce it, but I think they only have one Michelin star. I've never been to one before, but it's a Prix Fix menu with predetermined meals. It was like 5 meals, and we got like before course free meal and an after course free meal as well. The whole deal was like $120 for the meal, and then $80 wine pairing for the whole thing. So, I mean, for a Michelin star, I think that's decently priced. But looking back at the costs that we'll discuss in a minute here, that took up 30% of the whole restaurant cost. Like my whole meal costs while abroad was from this Michelin star restaurant. I'm glad I tried it, but I probably wouldn't go again. The service was out of this world. Like that is something that Michelin star restaurants definitely get right. Like my friend would stand up and go to the bathroom, and within 10 seconds, there'd be a guy coming over, folding his napkin, pushing his chair, and reorganizing his utensils. There was just a utensil guy that was in charge of giving us new utensils, organizing them at the side of our plates. It's really nice to have someone like the sous chef come out of the kitchen and explain the meal. The sommelier was super knowledgeable and very nice, and every person gets a different wine. Like there's specific wine pairings with your meal. Everybody gets the same meal, but there's a couple different wines he went through for each table. I saw him bringing out different ones. Got to try some local wines, some nice wines. Got to talk to the sommelier and hear his thoughts on some of the wines. So I really enjoyed the experience. Like I said, I probably wouldn't go again, but I'm glad I tried it, and I don't think $220 plus tip is crazy. Also, I always have a difficult time tipping in Europe, but I pretty much didn't tip, except in Prague. Prague seemed like they wanted tips, and I think it's because they don't like tourists and they want to take advantage of you. And I really didn't tip much, but at the Michelin star restaurant, I did tip. I think I tipped like 10%. 10% seems like you did a good job, but not required, but it's nice to add. So next, we'll talk about that total spend. And I don't say this to brag. I just like to detail. I like to go through and see how much I spend just in general on these trips. And I like to just share what I found and some reflections on how much I spent and my thoughts on it. So let's dive into the spend. So for cost, I broke things down by flight cost, housing cost, entertainment and tours cost, and then charges while abroad. Those are specifically broken down by card and then by category. So we'll start off with total spend for flights. So total flights were just under $1,000, $941. Most of that went on my Venture X, just because I had my $300 travel credit and 5% discount. And also, Venture X has a price match like guarantee. I think after you book your flight for, I don't know for how long, if the price goes down, they'll refund you as a coupon for the travel portal for the difference. So up to $50. And I think my price dropped like $60, and I was refunded $50 of that, which was nice. Not refunded, but given a credit on the travel portal. So my flight from Boston to Heathrow was $347, which was pretty pricey. not Heathrow, but Luton. Luton to Prague, EasyJet was just under 70, and that includes carry-on. So that's where the price gets ticked up. It's like $30 for the ticket, and then like almost 40 for carry-on. Then Prague to Amsterdam was EasyJet again, just under $90, and then Amsterdam to Reykjavik, I think it is, in Iceland, and then Iceland Reykjavik to Boston was $435. Also pretty expensive. So the flights went up a little bit this year from my last year's trip. Just, I don't know, that's just what it was. For housing, the total costs for the three of us were just under $3,700. We kind of get some nice Airbnbs. Like the Prague one was really nice, had a view of the castle, but it was pretty cheap when you look at the prices. London was most expensive just because London's expensive. It was over $1,100 for our stay there, which I think most days were 4 in each city. We were there for just about 2 weeks. I think we had 1 extra day in Amsterdam. So per person, it was $375 for London, $253 for Prague. Again, Prague's just really cheap. Definitely our nicest accommodations as well. And it was not definitely our nicest, but one of the nicest. It was a beautiful view. And then Amsterdam was a hotel, more traditional, more expensive. Was not on VentureX travel portal. I had to book it. Actually, I couldn't even book it through the website, even though there was a coupon there. It wouldn't accept my card. I tried a bunch of cards. It wouldn't take it. So I had to book it through, I think, Expedia. And I got the booking fine, but that came out to $600 per person total. For entertainment at tours, we booked most of them ahead of time. Some of them were free. Like our first London one was free, but the other ones were like maybe 50 to 100 at the most for per person. The tour for the Tulip tour was the most expensive at 100 a person. So we spent about $450 in tours and entertainment. That also includes like nightclubs. We bought some pre-purchase tickets for nightclubs, like $30. Most of them was pretty good. One in Prague was really bad. I think it was called Roxy's. There was like a bunch of 16-year-olds in there, which is not the vibe we're looking for. Luckily, we met some Swedes while we were abroad, and they were fantastic, and they met us at Roxy's, and we kind of just sat in the back and did not watch the middle school dance that was ensuing and just enjoyed ourselves. So while abroad, by card, my American Express received almost $1,400. Most of that was in restaurants, and $260 was other. Those were things that I thought would go towards restaurants, but wound up like being some other category. Redstone Federal Credit Union was my fallback for restaurants if American Express fell through, so that wound up being $742. And if I do the quick math here, if I do 1400 plus 742, and then divide, that's 2142. So if I do 1397 divided by about 2200, the card was accepted 63.5% of my restaurants, which is pretty good, honestly. Like a 60% acceptance rate, which is what I estimated earlier. I'm surprised it's actually pretty accurate. For American Express, it was pretty great, especially with 10X restaurants instead of 5X. And then Redstone Federal also did $7.48 of transit, just because I think that card was just easy to get to, and my Curve card declined. I was like, I'll just use this card, whatever. Bank of America Preferred Rewards Elite. There were some charges I wasn't sure if it would be restaurants or not, so I just used it, and it wound up being restaurants for $56. Total was $452. Transit was $143. That was Ubers as well as Subways. And other at $252. That included like groceries, but like that was more for like we went and bought like beer, groceries, snacks, some water and stuff. So that fell on under other, as well as some gifts I purchased. And then Curve wound up getting $372. A lot of them were declines. Restaurants amounted for $129. Transit just under $100. Entertainment $64, and other was $84, which includes like some grocery shopping. And then cardless, I only put $37 on it, just because after I did that, I realized, oh snap, I shouldn't be doing this because I have negative balance in my rewards. And then the difficulties with these calculations come through with Venmos. So last year I put almost all the charges on my cards while we were abroad, but this year my friends had their own transaction free or foreign transaction fee free cards, so they used their cards, and I had to pay them in Venmos as well as request. So I spent $322 on Venmos. that was coming out of my American Express send. And then ATM withdrawals was $180, but those were split three ways because anytime I needed cash, it was for all of us. So it was just $60 for me. So the totals overall, flights were $941, housing for myself was $1233, entertainment tours for myself was $456, restaurants for myself was just under $700. Again, like $200 of that was the Michelin star, so definitely expensive there. Transit was $94 for myself. Entertainment was $21 for myself. Other was just about $200 for myself. A lot of that is just for me, but I am dividing it by 3 just for easy calculations. Venmo's paid. I paid $322, but this one's a little bit weird where if I want to know the total spent, I have to multiply by 3 because anything I paid is a third of the total, so I multiplied by 3. ATM withdrawals for myself were $60, but total $180. So total per person, so total I spent out of pocket was $4,138, which is really a lot. Looking back at this trip, it was a very expensive trip. And then total spent among the 4 of us, not including anything that they purchased themselves, but stuff that I paid for and requested back, were in the amount of $8,539.17. So definitely gave a lot of money to Europe on this trip. Looking back on my last trip, total spend last year was $7,224.62, so an increase of 16% for total spend. And the total per person increased by 71% since last year was $2,408. And that really, I think, comes down to majority of the flights. Like looking back on the flights from last year, let's see if I can find it real quick. So last year I didn't go as granular to see exactly what I spent on flights, but I'm pretty sure it was less. I think I spent maybe like $800 on flights. So that's my Europe trip. Thanks for listening. I hope you all found something interesting here. I didn't really use any points to buy stuff. I now have a lot of membership rewards points, so I'll have to look into the best way to use those. And I did receive some feedback from last episode that the Daily Churn's private Discord is not $5, it's $25 a month. So sorry about that. I signed up when it was early and cheaper, so I kind of locked in a cheaper rate. And also, I heard that United's Travel Bank triggers American Express's $200 travel credit. So I'm gonna have to do that and report back if it works for me. But thanks always for listening. I probably won't have a regular episode until next week. I plan on doing a synopsis of what the heck's going on with Evolve Bank and Trust and Synapse's fall through, as well as some other normal updates. So stay tuned for that. There's also an upcoming Wealthfront 6% APY referral link that I saw some people sharing. It looks like Wealthfront's targeting people who have Wealthfront accounts and reported their employer as big banks. So like Wells Fargo has one with Wells Fargo is targeted by Wealthfront for their employees to give other employees referral links. So you have to be an employee at the company and referring someone who's also an employee at the company. Same thing for Capital One, and I think there's another one that also has that, but I'll be sure to share that next time. But that's it. Thanks always for listening, and hope you have a good one.